Hello, everyone, and welcome to a breakdown of UFC 273, Alexander Volkanovski versus the Korean Zombie. An awesome slate of fights set to go down this Saturday in Jacksonville, Florida. We not only have this title fight, but a bantamweight rematch between Aljamain Sterling and Peter Yan, and a featured bout with Khamzat Chimaev facing Gilbert Burns in what's going to be a very exciting card. Nick, how are you doing tonight? Looking forward to breaking down the card with you.
Yeah, man, absolutely. This is one of the more exciting pay-per-view cards we've had in a while. Just the top three fights are awesome. I know the odds are pretty wide on them, but they're all super intriguing. And yeah, I mean, we had a week off of fights, so just chomping at the bit to get going. I'm excited for sure.
Absolutely, and we will have a full written breakdown of all the fights on the card on Dine Sports Press Box this Saturday morning. But giving you a little taste now, we're going to go top to bottom, go break down these fights. So let's get right into it. Starting with the champion, Alexander Volkanovski, looking to retain his title against the Korean Zombie. This fight coming together on relatively short notice, as Max Holloway was originally scheduled to take part in a trilogy with the champion. And now we see, the Korean Zombie, a very large underdog, coming into this matchup here. What are your thoughts here? Going with the favorite?
Yeah, I like the favorite. I don't love the line. It's up to like minus 800 now, which feels a little bit inflated. I mean, Korean Zombie, he is the class of the division. Obviously, he's only coming off that win over Dan Ige. He did not look good against Ortega. But I mean, the truth of the matter in that fight was he ate that elbow in the second round, and he somehow, like a zombie, just stayed in there, didn't get KO'd, didn't get floored. But he himself said he didn't remember the rest of that fight, which is obviously a major concern. I still see him as a very high level fighter. I think the move to fight ready to train with Cejudo, like it's been for many fighters the past 2 years, is probably a great move for him. He's got a really great team behind him. But yeah, man, I mean, Volk is just a beast, and you know how I feel about him. I'm a huge Max Holloway stan. The last couple of wars between those two have been awesome. But he's gained my respect entirely. Volkanovski has. He's super well rounded. Obviously, not really a grapple first fighter, but he does have a decent wrestling base. We saw that submission defense on full display when Ortega caught him in that guillotine. And I mean, that piece the UFC put together, just like the 3-minute clip, like all the different angles, like you just see that he is a gamer, man, and that's the type of guy that you want to put your money on. I like Volkanovski here. I think he's safe to include in parlays. All that being said, I mean, we have seen Korean Zombie pull off some massive upsets before. I mean, he's getting up there in age. Once you're kind of, I don't know, into your mid to late 30s, he's 35 now. Like, usually that's not a good sign for featherweights. Like, you can get away with it in the upper weight classes, but you're going to lose some of that speed, which is definitely an advantage that he had earlier in his career. But yeah, man, I mean, you look at the Poirier fight, he was almost a plus 300. But that was what, like a decade ago?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
There's kind of a gap you see between the fights he's taken since his hiatus for military service and kind of what we got the old Zombie before. Still getting quality wins, but then it's guys like Bermudez and Renato Moicano and Frankie Edgar, and then most recently the Ige fight where he's still looking good. It's just obviously that's tough to compare to the guys that we've seen Volkanovski now going through with the two great fights against Holloway, and that performance against Ortega that really made him a household name. That performance. Yeah. And just with the lack of like holes in his game, like what would the path for the Korean Zombie would have to be knockout, you would think. And like, is he really going to expose anything in Volkanovski that we haven't seen? He's always, sound defensively. And, you would think the better fighter if this hits the mat as well.
Right. No, I totally agree. And I mean, obviously we don't want to play the MMA math game, but like you see what Ortega was able to do to Zombie. And then, I mean, outside of those grappling exchanges in round 3, Volk wiped the floor with Ortega. So again, it's hypocritical. We say don't do the MMA math thing, and here I am doing it. But I mean, those are two of their most recent fights, so it's just very easy to make those comparisons. I think that's why the line's so inflated. I mean, personally, minus 800 still feels too wide to me because I could see this definitely going to the scorecards. But it's a fight I expect Volk to win. I think he'll throw more volume. I don't really see Zombie going for takedowns or anything like that. And like you said, there's just no real holes in Volkanovski's game right now. I think the only hole might be his age, but he's fighting a guy who's even older than him. Like, I don't think that's going to catch up to him anytime soon. So I'm all over Volk here. And still.
I mean, I agree with the line being, too wide at this point. We've seen like Holloway was recently minus
Because everyone's
1,000 against
parlaying him.
year.
Yeah.
Right. It's the books do not want to see Volkanovski win and people make money. So you're really looking to, you could put him on the end of your parlays. Looking inside the distance here, I don't think is bad either. Currently, this is plus money just to not see the scorecards, which, I mean, in a fight like this where the Zombie's probably going to be needing the knockout, probably going to be pushing the pace early, and Volkanovski perhaps looking to make a statement. I think the under may be a better look, but obviously Volkanovski can win this on the scorecard. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Volk comes out here and he just like bum rushes him, but that would probably be the worst game plan he could have. Like, he's going to want to maintain that cardio for 5 rounds. I mean, you hear Volk in media, he's like, oh, I really want to get the knockout here. This isn't the top 3 or 4 fighter in the division, so I could see him wanting to get it. But I mean, we haven't seen him win via finish since what, 2018 against Mendez, or Kennedy in 2018. Like, it's just been a while. Is it possible? Sure, but he's called the Korean Zombie because of his durability. And I mean, that elbow from Ortega knocks out most people.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tough. I like Volk. I'll have him in probably all my parlays, but the inside the distance, maybe I sprinkle on it, but it scares me. Like, I'd much rather just take it. Or, I mean, the decision line too, like, it's like, do I really want to take that? Like, I don't know. There's better fights on this card to bet with closer odds, and I just think Volk wins. But you got to respect Zombie. Plus 500 is not something I'm going to be putting money on, but it is a bit disrespectful.
Right. Totally agree. All right, the co-main event. We have the Bantamweight Championship. The champion, Aljamain Sterling, taking on Petr Yan. Now, Sterling obviously won the belt due to disqualification in the first fight these two had. Sterling since has not fought, where Yan has. We've seen him look good, perform well against Sandhagen, and obviously he wants his belt back here. I could let you kick this off. Yan sitting right now at a minus 490 favorite. Yeah, you're thinking he gets his belt back?
Yeah, I do, honestly. I mean, we can give the listeners / viewers a bit of a history lesson here, I guess. You and I, this fight the first time around, it was what? Pick'em odds?
Oh, wrong. Aljo closed as a plus 310, and now he's a plus 370.
So the first time around, he did not close a plus 310. Plus 2
or plus 2.
No, that was when the fight got made and then it got called off. The first time it closed, Yan was minus 140. Sterling was plus 120. I was very heavy on Yan. That was my worst beat betting of the year. And yeah, I mean, it's tough to get too upset about it because Yan did make a terrible mistake. It wasn't intentional knee. When you're a champ, you can't really do that type of crap. Like, if you're the first fight on the card, you're a regional fighter, it's understandable. But as a champ, I mean, come on, like, it's tough. But I mean, the line's wide now because we saw the fight the first time. And I think, I don't know, Aljo came out, put a lot of pressure on Peter, looked good in the first round. Peter dropped him at the end of the first, kind of stole the round back, but then the pressure continued into the second round. But what we saw quickly after was his cardio start to fade. We see this in almost all of Peter Yan's fights. Aldo looked good early. Sandhagen looked good early. Everybody looks good early. He even played with Faber a little bit in that first round, let him have a couple moments. He likes to take his time, similar to one of your favorites, Adesanya. Take his time to kind of figure out what the other guy's doing, find your counters, find your openings, and then attack from there. I could see him being a bit more aggressive this time around, but I think it's smarter to just kind of wait and let Aljo come to him. The big story here, and it is a big story, I won't say it's going overlooked, but Sterling had neck surgery, and he looks like he's in great shape. He's put on all this muscle. He's shredded, but the truth of the reality of the matter is that's all you can do when you're recovering from surgery is kind of build muscle and work out, just to hit the weights. Like, I don't know that he has the sparring sessions that Yan does. I mean, just even watching like the previews that the UFC is putting out, like you see Aljo in there with Marab, obviously a killer, but he's grappling with Kai Kamaka I don't know, man. I just don't think he has the rounds in. We saw Jan go to war with Sandhagen, pull away late and dominate those later rounds. And then, I mean, he was at Tiger Muay Thai training with Volk. Like, he's training nonstop. He trained nonstop. He had fights since then. I think he's gotten a lot better since the first fight. He looked better in the first fight. So there's just nothing here to me other than like a fluke submission early that really gives Aljo an opening for a win. So I'm all over Peter here. I think he gets it done. I kind of like the inside the distance. I don't know that I go there yet. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm fed up with Aljo. I mean, I like the guy before that fight. It's a shame because he is one of the best bantamweights in the world, and just the way he kind of handled everything kind of hurt just his image as a fighter. And I mean, I'm sure he'll recover down the line. He's still one of the best there is, but yeah, man, it's Peter all day here. Peter Yan's one of my favorite fighters on the roster, and I just think he rolls through him, and he just continues to defend this belt for a few more years. I think Dillashaw's next. He's going to beat Dillashaw, and then it's Aldo or Cruz, and then he'll beat both of them again. And I don't know. Bantamweight's going to be tough for a while for anyone to take that belt off him.
Yeah, I 100% agree that Peter Yan is the best bantamweight in the world. And I think Aljamain Sterling is the only, contender that really poses a threat to him in his reign, just based on the style. I took him in that first fight. I took money off you, with that illegal knee. And, honestly, it really was swaying in the direction of Peter Yan, but that really seemed to be caused because of that cardio sap. I mean, after 2 rounds, Aljamain was already panting for air, where Yan is a fighter who always takes his time. And really, it's like defensive shell the first whole round there, just getting his reads, staying smart, stuffing takedowns. Aljamain was able to get, one real clean takedown on him. And I think the path to victory for him here is going to be, again, going back to that wrestling, whether it be with a more conservative approach or, perhaps looking again early because he knows over the course of 25 minutes, he's not going to prove that he's the better fighter than Peter Yan. You're right. He gets disrespected a bit now. Everyone hates on him because of the way he handled the loss.
It's the acting job after the knee. Like, the knee was real. Like, you can't get mad at him for the knee. It's the looking around with the belt, the bad acting.
Like, but do we get mad at Mark Smith for not immediately upon a fight-ending sequence calling it off?
Well, Mark Smith's not the best ref. I mean, I'm happy to get mad at him too. But I mean,
with Aljamain, you look at his resume top to bottom; it is stacked as well. 2 split decision losses, and then just that one knee that Moraes caught him with early. Aside from that, I mean, you saw what he was able to do to Sandhagen. There are positions that Sterling can win in this fight, and I think that looking for the submission is going to be the clearest and perhaps only path to victory for him. And just with the odds now this wide, I think he really does have a chance yet again. So my money's going on him. As crazy as it sounds, betting against Peter Yan, this is the only guy that I think could take that belt and keep it away from him. The size, I think, is big. We saw that he may not be as technical when it comes to, getting these takedowns and, Peter being able to reverse him and throw him on the mat. But also that fight in the Apex it got ugly. Like, Sterling was like crawling around on the mat. He was on his ass for like half the fight, really. Like, throwing his legs over at Yan. It's going to be different, I think.
But let me counter with this.
With the fans.
You bring up the Apex cage. I mean, this is going to be a bigger cage. Wouldn't you figure that would favor Peter? Like, if Sterling's going to be trying to engage in this grappling, like that's an advantage to Peter to go to the bigger cage with the crowd behind him too, mind you. So is that 2 more boxes to check for Yan? Like, I
mean, Sterling isn't going to be content to play the whole fight on his knees like he was when no one was there watching. And I think that, if successful in perhaps getting an early takedown, he can't be going for the single legs we saw in the first fight. He really needs to commit if he is going to get Yan to the mat. And I just think they're like getting his back, getting those positions. He certainly is going to look like better than a plus 370 here. I expect a much better performance than the first fight. So with the odds spreading this wide, I'm going to back my guy. I'm going to take another shot on him, even though I agree that Yan is the best bantamweight and, really deserves the belt.
Yeah.
But it's a fight, we still got to see these two again. And I think Sterling really wants to prove that the first time, wasn't his best showing. He wants to put his best foot forward and retain the belt here.
Right. And I mean, I do agree that that did not look like the best Sterling, but like it was just terrible game planning, really. I don't know that anything else was really the reason he struggled there. Um, and I don't know, man. It's just recovering from a neck surgery where Peters had the fight with Sandhagen. Like Sterling was coming off all that momentum from the win over Sandhagen. He was coming off a ton of momentum. He has no momentum right now. He has the belt around his waist, but the momentum's on Peters' side. And I mean, the line indicates that. So I don't know. I guess even just based off value alone, when you look at the line the first time and then this time, it's like, okay, maybe you just sprinkle on the dog just off that. Like you don't even need to watch fights if you're just betting books that way. Like I get it. Like I respect it to a point, but I don't know. I just think Peter rolls here.
And that isn't my strategy in general. I'll take shots on the big dogs when I think that there is a legitimate chance, not just chasing the value. I think there's one here, but we will see. And I would not be surprised, but I'm saying it still.
And new again. It's
all
weird.
Right. I think this is a fight that will probably be a little less contested between the two of us. Khamzat Chimaev sitting as a minus 550 favorite against Gilbert Durinho Burns. I'll let you get this one started.
Yeah, I mean, people like to talk about hype trains. Like there's Paddy Pimblett, there's O'Malley, like there's different kinds of hype. Kamaev's hype has been building long before he was in the UFC. He's one of these guys that should have been in the UFC probably sooner than he was, not kind of gaining experience through the ranks. So he's making a huge jump up here. He's the 11th ranked welterweight in the world, taking on what's Burns, 2 or 3 now. But yeah, I mean, Burns, former 155er, outstanding jiu-jitsu, pretty strong punches, but not the best striking, not the best cardio. Kamaev is a monster, dude. I'm a huge fan of this guy. Everything he's done so far, I've just enjoyed. I remember when he made his debut, like before even like watching film, I was like, oh man, I don't know. Like Phillips is this big of an underdog. Like he's got some fists. And just watching that video of him grappling, what was it? It was like a preschool. There's like little kids around and he's choking someone out years ago. Like this guy's just a monster. And it's like that same Dagestani style wrestling that you see out of Khabib in Islam at lightweight, but he's huge. He's a monster. We've seen him win fights at 185 pounds. He's talked about taking 3 belts going up to 205. I do think his head's getting a little big, but I mean, honestly, it should, the way this guy trains. They're doing that like block acid thing, not to plug them or anything, but him and Darren Till, but you get to see him training every day. They're putting up videos. This guy is in the gym nonstop. He's a gym rat. And I mean, just the Jing Liang Lee fight, like I think we both had him by sub in the first round or knockout in the first round. But like just the way he picked him up like a little baby. And Lee is not a small welterweight at all. Burns is a smaller welterweight. And I think another thing not too many people are talking about was that wrestling match with Hermanson, who's like a big 185er. He was manhandling him. So I mean,
and kind of playing around too,
Right. And I know Burns has the jiu-jitsu, but I don't think he's ever going to be able to gain the positions. And outside of just like some crazy hook where Khamzat's just like, I don't know, a little too cocky or something, and Burns catches him maybe, like I just don't see that happening. I think they probably stay standing, but no matter where he wants it to go, I think this is Khamzat's fight to win or lose. I mean, the narrative you hear on Twitter and everywhere is, oh, everyone's disrespecting Burns. He's obviously more tested. Yeah, he's more tested, but there's a reason Kamaev's getting this test. There's a reason books have him pushing minus 500 or whatever he is now. Like, he is that good. And there's also a reason Kamaru Usman is just ignoring all the trash talk and like targeting McGregor on Twitter now.
And helping Burns this camp.
And you even hear Izzy, he picked Burns to win. Like, no one wants to face this guy. Nobody does. And yeah, I just don't see Burns as the guy who's going to stop him. So yeah, I love Khamzat here. I might bet him round 1. I think that's probably where your best value is. It's tricky because when you go with the knockout, he could get the sub and vice versa. But with a guy like Burns, who's such an advanced black belt, I think it's more likely we see the KO. So I'd rather bet him by KO, but there's going to be some juice on that. So I
KO
don't know.
plus 150. I've locked in
That's
already.
it. That's it.
Hit the under plenty as well. And Hamzat inside the distance. I mean, yeah, you hit it right on. So much bigger. You got 4 inches of height, 4 inches of reach for a guy that we've seen have success at 185 pounds against Gilbert Burns, who really I don't think is going to be able to keep up with the pressure and the power on the feet. Not only the relationship with Till is great to see, but Till's a elite level striker as well. Continuing to add to Hamzat's game, as the wrestling was really the start for him as a Swedish national champion. But going through and adding the striking.
Gustafsson, though, I mean,
right.
He helped the striking too, I think, for years. Like, we just haven't had a chance to see him strike.
For
really.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, with those block asset videos as well, it's not only every day in the gym. He was like waking up in the middle of the night, getting some, rounds in with his coach, doing workouts by the pool. He is a gym rat. He really, wants to prove that he is the best. And I think Burns is not going to be somebody who gives him too much trouble. As you were saying, I think it's going to be, a fight kept standing as well, just due to the, history of jiu-jitsu that Burns has, shown inside the cage. The fight with Gerald Mearshart, the only real threat was that grappling, and Hamzat just kept it standing, didn't respect the hands, put the pressure right on, and knocked him out. And, I see kind of a similar style of fight where he's going to want to stay in Burns' face and keep it standing as long as, he needs to. And obviously can rely on that grappling if needed, and would prefer to bring the fight to the mat. And just Burns as well. He's super talented. You don't want to overrate him, but I mean, Usman knocked him out with a jab. Like Kamaev has crazy power, as we've seen. And, I don't think he's going to be able to endure too much from him over the course of, 15 minutes, which I don't think it's going to go that long.
Right. And honestly, I think the only chance Burns has, just to play a little bit of devil's advocate, would be to rush and try to be the aggressor here. We saw early in the Usman fight, he clipped him. He couldn't finish him. And I don't think he's going to clip or finish Kamaev here. But I mean, that's maybe the one path. And just knowing who Kamaev is, I don't really see Burns trying to do that. I think he's going to try to drag things out, and it's just not going to go well. So,
and with hype piling up this much too, it's not always about that kind of style of game plan. Sometimes it is more surviving. So the approach he takes could end up playing to his detriment as well. With Hamzat confident as ever and ready to put on another show.
Absolutely.
All right. Really close fight prior to that one. Mackenzie Dern taking on Tiny Tornado, Tisha Torres. Good women's strawweight fight. I mean, this is striker versus grappler to a T, as most Mackenzie Dern fights are. Very credentialed grappler. Has, that kind of one touch, death touch on the mat when it comes to submissions. But, getting it there has been an issue for her when it comes to, securing strong takedowns, as well as the work we've seen from her on the feet thus far really isn't up to par with a lot of the other, upper echelon women in this division. So, while I think she has a great chance of winning this fight if things do hit the mat at any point, the more well-rounded fighter is Tisha Torres. She's smaller, but she's more active. She's going to be able to use the larger cage to her advantage to stay out of those grappling exchanges. And, she's nearly plus money now, too. I think she's at even money at some books. So that's the side I'm leaning. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think if either fighter is going to win via finish, it's Dern, but my pick's Torres as well. Dern is pretty much the Damian Maia of strawweight women's MMA. Like, she's just spamming takedowns, looking for takedowns, trying to get to the fight to the ground, because she is probably one of the best jiu-jitsu players to ever fight in the UFC in the women's ranks, or in any ranks for that matter. I mean, Torres has never been submitted before. She has just around a 60% takedown defense, which isn't elite, but I mean, that's over a lot of fights. And I mean, the game plan here is simple. Just sprawl and brawl, stay standing. If you do get taken down, don't stay there long. Do not give Dern any chance to advance. But I mean, a lot of this is because of Dern's fight against Rodriguez, her last time out. but her takedown accuracy is down to a miserable 10% now. So, like I said, it's the Damian Maia style of I need the takedown. I'm going for the takedown. Her striking has improved a little bit, but yeah, I just don't see her necessarily getting the takedown she needs here. That being said, we have seen Torres kind of grounded in certain fights, just being over aggressive. Like she ended up on her back against Angela Hill. But I just don't think she makes those mistakes here. It's very, very clear what she needs to do. I mean, she's been on cards with her partner, Raquel Pennington, before, and they've both won. So I think that's an advantage. They're both going hard for this camp, I imagine. And when you just look at Torres's record, the only girls she's losing to are either former champs or Marina Rodriguez, who's about to be challenging for the title. Like, yeah, just the elite of the elite. And I don't necessarily think Dern is that in terms of full MMA. She certainly is if this fight hits the mat. Like she's going to look like a minus 300 if she can get her down probably, but I don't see it. I think Torres keeps this standing for however long she needs to and wins via decision. And yeah, if we're getting plus money on her, that's a bet I'm definitely going to make for a unit or two. But yeah, Dern, it's scary because if it does hit the mat, I mean, her jiu-jitsu is insane, but I don't know. We've just never seen Torres submitted before. We've seen her against really tough competition. So I'm backing Tisha here.
I'd say stronger as well, not only the better striker, but smaller, more compact, going to be able to likely stuff those takedowns and going to be able to, put on or land the cleaner strikes, land the harder
Big
strikes.
cage too. Big
right,
cage.
exactly. She's going to be able to move around. She's so quick. I don't think Dern's going to be able to get her hands on her. And if she does, that's obviously the risky play. But at a pick 'em odds, I think Torres is the pick.
Agreed.
All right, and then opening the main card, a really good fight. Vince Pichel taking on Marco Madsen. Marco Madsen still undefeated, 11-0. He's entering this fight after some time off and a camp at Fight Ready as well. I'm really impressed with what we've seen thus far. Not only the Greco-Roman wrestling, but I mean his fight with Clay Guida, he didn't even attempt a takedown and landed 100 strikes. I think he's improving, and I think over the course of a fight with a guy with only 25% takedown defense like Pichel, he is going to be able to go back to that Greco-Roman style, pressuring and looking to bring the fight to the mat where he really should have a significant advantage over a guy like Pichel, who I would say does his best work on the feet.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one for me, honestly. I'm not 100% decided. I'm currently leaning on the Pichel side, though, and Madsen's the better grappler here by miles. And I know Pichel's takedown defense is low, but I think a lot of those came against Gregor Gillespie. And the thing is with Madsen, I think he didn't grapple with Guida much because he was worried about his cardio. Like we've seen him dominate these fights early and then start to fade as they wear on. And Pichel, he's that guy. He kind of gets beat up early and he starts to take over as fights wear on. So I definitely think Madsen wins maybe the first round. And when this fight is standing, I definitely see Pichel as the better striker, certainly with more power, more dangerous strikes. But yeah, I mean, if Madsen just can take him down and keep him down, he's going to win via decision. It's just, can he do it for 15 full minutes? And if he can, and if his gas tank starts to fade late second, early third round, I could see Pichel having the better cardio and taking over. I don't know. I mean, that Guida fight really didn't impress me with Madsen. Like, this is an undefeated fighter with a lot of hype on him. And I know Guida's like a crafty vet, but he really did not look impressive at all in that fight. Like, I don't know. And there's just no real huge wins on his record. There's nothing about him other than the Olympic credentials that make me say, oh, this guy's really, really good. And he's getting up there in age. I mean, it's nice he's going to Fight Ready, but for me, it's just a cardio question. And I'm concerned that as this fight wears on, he's going to start to fade. And I just think there's going to be a little bit of value here on Pichel. Tough fight, close fight. One I'm certainly not 100% decided on, but right now I'm siding with Pichel. I just think Madsen looks great early, but then he starts to fade. And as we've seen with Pichel many times before, he's going to start to take over as this thing gets into the later rounds. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think narratives like that can sometimes play out well, but also, sometimes discredit the fighter. in a situation with Madsen here, that last camp was also a tough one for him after some time off, and his wife is battling MS as well. So, I mean, coming into this one, I think we are going to see more improvements made, especially with the, move to fight ready, as well as I think that, you're underrating some other parts of this, not you in general, but, a lot of folks that I've seen on the Pichel side, his strength as well. He's got power on the feet. I think with Pichel, the like large dose of leg kicks he tends to throw, could leave him susceptible to even more takedowns too. And, with Madsen, he's just so strong around the hips. He's great at moving the single leg too, getting to the opponent hips and taking them down that way. So really top pressure or even some, solid exchanges on the feet. I think he keeps that gas tank in check and should be, able to win 2 rounds of this fight. I think pretty easily, not necessarily, easy against a guy like, from Hell Pichel, but at odds like this, getting plus money on Marco Madsen, I already have locked in. I got him at 135 and the line is moved into a plus 105 right now. But yeah, that's the side for me. I can see why you'd go the other way though.
Yeah, it's a close one. And like I said, I mean, if Madsen just kind of grounds him for 3 rounds, I'm not going to be surprised in the least. I just think Pichel has that dog in him. I think the experience in the MMA is going to shine through here. So we'll see. Close fight for sure.
Should be a good one, as is our featured prelim about between Ian Gary, another undefeated prospect, taking on Darian Weeks. We saw Gary make his UFC debut against Jordan Williams, land a great KO right as the first round was ending. As he is a striker. He is somebody who, with the length and size he has at welterweight, should be able to put on performances like that with such high level striking. And, a big favorite here, minus 360, 370 some spots. Line closing a bit, but, certainly expected to get the job done. And I would agree that he does in this spot, using that striking, staying at range, and touching up Weeks with his, counters and, technical striking. The patience we saw out of him too in that Williams fight, I really like. Waiting for the counter to present itself, getting clipped a bit early, but able to, close it out and land the cleaner strikes over the course of those 5 minutes. So he's my pick here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the Williams fight was more of a negative than a positive to me for Gary. Like, I was very high on him coming out of Cage Warriors. I actually think some of the wins he has in Cage Warriors, like a Jack Grant, are more impressive than a win over Jordan Williams. Williams was fighting for his job there, though. Like, he came out firing. He did everything he could to kind of put him out quick. It didn't go well. Obviously, Gary had that really nice step jab counter, knocked him out. And we've seen him use that combination before. Gary, very talented, really good striker, not a great wrestler. Weeks, I think, is going to have a bit of a wrestling advantage here. But once it hits the mat, Gary does have good jiu-jitsu. I do like that he's training out of Sanford. It seems like he's spending a lot of time with Gilbert Burns this camp. I know we're fading Burns hard against Kamaev, but that's a good sign for a young kid. I do like that. And the big thing for me here is the UFC is putting him in the feature prelim. They're not trying to bump up Darian Weeks. Like this is a spot where they're trying to build a prospect. I do think the line's gotten out of hand. I do not want to bet Gary at minus 400, but I would consider taking him inside the distance. But yeah, man, I mean, I think the hype has just gotten a little too big, and it's building a little bit too fast. I'm just concerned for him in that regard. And I don't know. He said in that Williams fight that he came out with jitters, like he didn't feel great initially. But I mean, who's to say he's not going to feel that again here? This is a bigger card. This is a huge moment. I don't know that it's a bigger card, but it is a huge moment. So he's going to have to rise to that occasion. I like Gary. I think he's a good prospect, but he's still very green. He's still very young at 24. I love that he moved to Sanford, but there's still a lot of holes in his game. And I mean, the striking defense is one. He kind of has that tall man stand up and his chin's in the air. But I don't think Weeks is the type of guy to necessarily be able to kind of capitalize on that. Weeks could maybe execute a wrestling heavy game plan for a round or two, but his cardio did not look great against Barberina late in that fight. great second round against Barberena, but I mean, the third was not. So yeah, I mean, I just don't really rate Weeks that highly at all. I mean, I think there is going to be a spot to fade Gary soon, honestly. I just don't think this is it. So I'm on Ian Gary here, but a little bit more cautious than it sounds like you might be. I like the kid. I think he's a great prospect. You know, I love my Cage Warriors guys, but this is just, I don't know. That Williams fight did not really make me feel great about him. And yeah, I mean, just I don't really rate Weeks well, so I'm going to take Gary here, but it's not the most confident play.
Yeah, I mean, certainly drawing a lot of hype. You know, a line like this is certainly wide, but is Weeks really much better a fighter than Jordan Williams? I mean, that only, you know, loss is his step up in competition against Brian Barberena, where the rest of his resume is very thin. I mean, I know he had a lot of amateur experience, but, you know, thus far as a pro, I haven't really been that impressed. And I think his aggressive nature could also, you know, play to a detriment against a guy like Gary, who's going to be much more precise and, you know, far more technical on the feet. Yeah, I mean, Gary, I wouldn't be, you know, rushing to bet or, you know, throwing too many parlays at -400, but, you know, a look +110 by knockout is probably, you know, the way I'm going here.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, or as you said, an inside the distance bet.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Weeks did secure 4 takedowns on Barberena. Not that Barberena has great takedown defense or anything, but I mean, he knows that he does have a wrestling advantage in certain matchups, and I think that's his one path here. So it could look a little fuzzy early, but yeah, I got to take Gary here. I just don't think the UFC is setting him up to lose as a feature prelim. This is a prospect they definitely have some money invested in.
Right. Okay, this is going to be a good fight between Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Marcin Tybura. You know, two heavyweights, a really close fight. You know, Rozenstruik sitting as a -160. You know, currently here, but I mean, this is a coin flip in my eyes. I'd love to hear, you know, your thoughts on this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I like Tybora. I think he has a very clear path here if he can keep this thing grounded. I just don't know that he can. We saw Blades take Rozenstruik down a bunch of times, but Struik just kept getting back up. And I mean, Blades is an underrated striker. I think when this is on the feet, Struik is going to be dramatically better. I do think Tybora knows well enough to kind of go for those takedowns, but I mean, in the bigger cage, it's even tougher for heavyweights to kind of find those in open space. I don't know. This is a tough one, but I think Struik's going to find his chin. I will say this, though, like, I can never get too confident backing Rozenstruik against anyone. He comes out so slow. He's another one of these guys that, like, you're just yelling at your TV, like, do something, throw a punch, do anything. Like, obviously, we were big on Overeem in that fight where Overeem dominated and Struik caught him at the very end. But, like, every single one of Rozenstruik's fight, like even against Sakai, it's like you're just waiting and waiting for him to just finally counter, finally throw something. He did not look good against JDS early, and everyone's been looking good against JDS. It's like, come on, just do something. And like, I think as long as he's a little bit aggressive here, like a little bit more than we normally see, then he's gonna clip Tybora before this thing's over. I like his cardio. We've seen him carry that into the 5th round. I just mentioned the Overeem fight. Tybora has decent cardio as well, but I mean, that huge winning streak Tybora is on, like looking back over it now, none of those guys are in the UFC anymore, except for Maxim Grishin, and Grishin's kind of a 205-er. Rothwell got cut, Hardy got cut, Harris got cut. So I don't know. I mean, what are we really basing, like, with the love for Tybura on other than the path where he can grapple? But we just saw Struik get back up against the best grappler at heavyweight in Curtis Blades. So it's Struik for me. Fairly confident, but again, I don't want to put too much money on him just because I know I'm going to be screaming at the TV for him to throw some fists. And that's never too much fun. So I like Struik here, but again, it's just tough to get over invested.
Yeah, I mean, Rozenstruik's like a very tough fighter to back, but also a very tough one to fade because he is such a, you know, high-level kickboxer, and he has, you know, a very good power. You know, his ability to knock out Sakai, he could definitely clip and put Tybora down. But even aside from, you know, the takedowns, I think just the clinch and, you know, pressure up against the cage is going to be a path to victory for Tybora here. You know, he wasn't able to get a single takedown in that fight against Volkov, but he was able to do enough in the 2nd round to, you know, win it on the scorecards, as well as, you know, get good pressure and control up against the cage. And I think that'd be a good path for him here as well. With Rozenstruik, you know, a lot of that inactivity is also coming in those positions where he's on the back foot, because he really doesn't throw. He's only going to be, you know, when he's offensive, when he's able to find those openings, he's going to let his hands go. But the other time, you know, or the rest of the time, he's, you know, shut down almost completely. And, you know, Tabora is a big heavyweight too. I think he's going to be able to maybe push him around a good portion of this fight. You know, I don't know if it's going to be enough to last the full 15 minutes or, you know, land something meaningful back against Rosenstrike. But I think that path to victory is there for him. And it's such a tough fight. I mean, as I think it's a coin flip, I'm probably taking Tabora just at the plus money side. But I mean, this is a tough one to call. I could really see it going either way.
Yeah, if I thought Struck would be a little more aggressive, it'd be one of my more confident plays. Honestly, I just don't. I don't know. I just don't like putting too much money on a guy that doesn't always throw the hands. So I don't know. I like Struck here. I think Tabora is a bit overrated, and I don't know. It's a heavyweight fight though, so there's always going to be volatility.
And I mean, I like Struck against a volume guy like Sakai, but when it comes to just this matchup in particular, if it's Tabora, you know, pressuring him, really closing the distance, putting him on the back foot, you know, it's going to be ugly. So we'll see.
We will.
All right, women's bantamweight matchup. This one came together on pretty short notice. Aspen Ladd taking on Raquel Pennington. As we said earlier, Pennington in relationship Tisha Torres fighting later on this card. And a sizable favorite here, minus 190, on a nice little win streak, honestly. You know, the last win against Chason was pretty impressive, but the level of competition really hasn't been great. I mean, when it comes to Chason and, you know, a kickboxer and Penny Kianza that she was able to take down and beat, I mean, the takedown is going to be the key again here. You know, the woman on top is probably going to have the most success because on the feet, I think these two both offer a lot of, you know, different variables. And, you know, Ladd could, I think, hold her own. She's been very tough to, you know, in general as of late. The scale has been a major issue for her. So I'm not even ready to pick this fight until we see, you know, how the weigh-ins look tomorrow morning. But, I mean, it's a close fight. And I think on short notice, too, it's going to be, you know, tougher for me to, you know, want to pull the trigger on Pennington as a sizable favorite in a matchup that I think is very volatile.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Ladd, before the knee injuries, she was really good. And since she had the ACL, MCL surgeries, all we've seen is that Norma Dumont fight where she just did nothing. And like you said, I mean, the weigh-in's a major concern. So if you are a Ladd backer, I think you have to keep an eye on that. You want her to look good on the scales because it's very, very rare she does at 135 pounds. So I'm backing Pennington here. I'm actually fairly confident in her. I mean, Ladd, if she does execute a grappling heavy game plan, she is going to look like the heavy favorite. But I don't know. Pennington's just looked good lately. She's looked sharp. She seems focused. Everything about her. I like that she's training with Torres, who's just a fight or two away from a title. I think that's motivating her. It's tough not to be motivated coming off 3 wins either. I think she has a lot of momentum right now. I mean, you look who she's losing to, and it's all champs too. Like we were talking about this earlier with Torres. I mean, she's lost to Holm, to Randomie Nunez. Other than that, it's been a while. Like, and then you go back, what, 10 years, and it's still Holm and Andrade again. So I don't know. I really don't see Ladd on that level. I know she had a ton of hype, and it's tough not to like wrestlers, especially in these women's ranks. But yeah, I just don't think she's the same since the knee injury, and I just have no faith in backing her, seeing how she struggled to make weight. And even when she fought up at 145, she just did nothing that entire fight against Norma Dumont. That might have been the worst main event of like the past 3 years. Like, I mean, we've had a few bad ones. Like even Ankalaev Santos was pretty bad, but that was a bad one. So I don't know. I just think Rocky's going to be the more aggressive fighter here. I just see her as the more vicious of the two. And to me, in a fight, that sometimes is enough. So I'm taking Pennington here. Not my most confident play for sure, especially at like minus 170, 180. The line's getting a little bit inflated now, but that's my pick. So.
Does the short notice nature, you know, concern you at all? I know Ladd was originally going to be fighting Irina Aldana on this card, which is, you know, her getting fed to somebody that's probably sticking around the UFC, and maybe she is getting her walking papers. I mean, I feel like this is a softer matchup and one where, you know, if by implementing that grappling, she'd be able to, you know, save her spot on the roster.
No, and I'll tell you why, because Pennington's been in a deep camp with Torres getting ready for Dern. So I think she was ready to go. I don't think she takes this fight unless she thinks she was in a good spot to win it. I'm sure they were probably sitting at home watching that Norma Dumont fight, like, oh, if they want to match me up with her, I'll take that tomorrow. And yeah, I think she was in camp with Tisha. There's no way she was just sitting relaxing, getting fat while Tisha was grinding for this fight. And yeah, I don't think she takes it unless she thinks she can win. So I'm on Pennington here. Again, I want to see both of them at weigh-ins. Like
Yeah,
sometimes
she's
Pennington looks a
moving down too.
little fluffy. Yeah. So we'll see, but I don't know. I like Pennington. I just think she's the more aggressive of the two. And just coming off that Dumont fight, like I just could not put a single dollar on Ladd. I'm not gonna expect her to be who she was a few years ago. Like I'll expect Pennington to be who she was the past year. So.
All right, fair points made there. This one, an interesting fight, kind of a mirror match a bit. We have Mike Malott against Mickey Gall, a welterweight scrap. I mean, Malott coming off a Dana White's Contender Series win real quick, snatching up a guillotine choke, as he and Team Alpha Male fighters traditionally do. After what was kind of a long road to get into the UFC, now age of 30, I believe. Taking on Mickey Gall here in his debut. I mean, the quick guillotine and, a lot of what we've seen from Malott is his, good grappling. But I think he is the better striker as well in a matchup with Mickey Gall here, given his, kickboxing background and, ability to put together better combinations and, look cleaner on the feet. I think the reason this is a bit of a mirror match is because of how talented these two are when things hit the mat. But perhaps Malott staying at range in the bigger cage and working his strikes would be a clear path to victory. And I think he's the rightful favorite. But certainly minus 190 pushing minus 200 seems a bit fishy to me. What about you?
Yeah, this is a really tough one for me. And yeah, we talk about a long road to the UFC for Malott, but he kind of didn't want to fight anymore. Like he was just coaching for years, and he decided to get back into it. I guess he had some sort of injury or condition, and they told him he couldn't fight again. But he got a second opinion. They're like, "Oh, dude, you're good. Go ahead."
It was like a vertigo type issue.
Yeah, some strange, something like that. But I did watch that Solomon Renfro fight, and Renfro's a dude who has a ton of hype, and he keeps losing. But he was clipping the hell out of Malott, like just rocking him again and again. Zero striking defense on Malott, but the durability was there. The chin held up, and he was able to snatch his neck. And then we saw in the fight on Contender Series another quick submission. I don't think he's going to be live for a quick submission in here against Gall. And it's tough to back him a lot because we really haven't seen him go outside of that first round since before he had the vertigo issues or whatever it was. So there's just so many question marks here. Part of me wants to back Gall, but then you remember, oh yeah, it's Mickey Gall. Like this is the guy who got in the UFC beating CM Punk, kind of the laughing stock.
Sanchez,
yeah, I mean,
there's a lot.
He's durable, but yeah, the loss to Sanchez is not good. He looked terrible against Mike Perry when Mike Perry had Latori, his girlfriend, as his corner, and really wasn't taking anything all that seriously. So I don't know, man. I like Malott here. I think he's the higher ceiling, but I don't know how high of a ceiling that is. Like if Gall had any power at all, I'd probably take Mickey Gall here. I just don't think he does. So I'm reluctantly backing Malott. I'm going to try to watch a little more film, I think, on Gall this evening. So keep an eye out on that write-up. But this one's giving me trouble, man. Like I like Malott. I do agree that he's the rightful favorite. But I mean, Gall has the experience. And I mean, going into that Jordan Williams fight, I don't think anyone thought he was going to make that look as easy as he did. I mean, in hindsight, now that Williams is cut from the roster, it makes perfect sense. But at the time, I mean, that was impressive. But again, that was a quick submission. I don't think he's going to be able to do that here either. So, yeah,
Right.
it's a mirror match, like you're saying. So, I don't know. I have little confidence in either of these guys, but a bit more in Malott. But again, not a fight I'm putting much money on either way.
Yeah, and I mean, skill-wise, I would say Malott has more well-rounded and probably better in most areas than Mickey Gall.
The striking defense is terrible though. Like I will, like I mean, you could watch that Renfro fight if you have. There's a couple others. Like he's good offensively, he has good kickboxing, but he is there to be hit. And like I said, I don't think Gall has the power to really make him pay for it. But yeah, it's tough to get excited about either of these dudes.
And a lot of other folks bringing up the unknowns with Malott, such as, you know, the cardio, just with his ability to extend the fight. You know, the one time he did go the distance was all the way down at featherweight. So you really can't take much stock in that because he had a 10-8 first round. But then it was the second two in which, you know, that cardio was used up and he was unable to, you know, stay together. That ended up being a draw. So, I mean, I think he definitely, you know, should be the more technical fighter. It is just the unknowns of, you know, an older guy coming into the UFC. But it's Mickey Gall. I'm
Right.
not going to put my money on Mickey Gall this weekend.
And everyone was loving that Gall went to start training with Matt Brown, which was a good move, but he already left. Like, I don't know why Gall can't just stay at one training camp. It's definitely not a good thing that he jumps around every fight.
Right. Weird fight there. Not another fight here. We got
Another weird one.
Yeah, another weird one for sure. Alexei Olynyk against Jared Vandaa. This one coming together on pretty short notice as Olynyk was matched up with Latifi the past month or two. You know, waiting for that fight to materialize on a couple different cards, but now Latifi's injured, and you know this is the matchup that Olynyk is getting in search of his 60th win. It's been a tough losing streak for Olynyk. I'm a huge fan of his. I mean, the Ezekiel choke's sick. I mean, whoever can land that in the UFC level, I'm going to be a fan of. And just, you know, his credentialed history as a, you know, high level grappler is clearly evident. Probably one of the best at heavyweight. And if he's ever going to get that 60th win, I think it's probably going to be in this matchup here against a guy in Vandaa who's 12-7. More of a volume guy than a power guy. And I think definitely there's a path to victory for Olynyk getting this to the mat and, you know, looking for the submission, which is his bread and butter. You know, the takedown accuracy isn't great, but Vandaa is kind of there to, you know, be taken down. Not the most mobile of heavyweights. And I think a matchup like this kind of plays to the advantage of Olynyk versus a guy like he was originally matched up with in Latifi that had the power to really threaten him and, you know, make things a lot sketchier. You know, at a pick'em, it's a tough fight to call, but I am leaning that way with, you know, the veteran Olynyk here.
Yeah, that's my lean as well. He did have the full camp for Aliir Latifi. I mean, I don't think he's the type of fighter you have to worry about like peaking and re-peaking. Like he's definitely way past that. Like I don't know that Olynyk ever peaks anymore. But man, I mean, Vandaa, there's just really nothing about him that makes me think he's going to continue to fight in the UFC. At least with Olynyk, we know he has that outstanding submission ability. Vandaa himself doesn't have very good takedown defense. I think just 20% in the UFC. Most of that's because he's fighting grapplers, like he's fighting Romanov and Spivak. But yeah, I mean, Olynyk, he could pull guard here. Like, as long as he doesn't put Vandaa on top of him, I think he's going to be okay. It's just, Olynyk is really old, man, and he is pretty damn washed, too. Like, the chin is not there anymore. I wouldn't be shocked if Vandaa caught him. It is heavyweights. I know I sound like a broken record, but they're volatile. It's volatile. These are big guys with big hands, and sometimes they get knocked out. So, especially a guy like Olynyk, who we keep seeing get knocked out again and again. This is... I don't know. If he loses here, he's definitely done, at least with the UFC. Could see him fighting for an Eagle FC title, maybe against JDS or something like that. But yeah, I'm backing Olynyk here reluctantly. I'm really not excited about it. But I think at dog money, he's certainly the value. We've seen more out of him. He's certainly a shell of who he once was, but there's just nothing about Vandaa that makes me think he's going to continue to stick on this roster. And I do think taking this fight on just 10 days notice is a major disadvantage as well. Olynyk, as old and as mediocre as maybe he is the type of fighter you need to game plan for. You need to kind of know how to defend those body lock takedowns. You need to kind of know how to defend some of those scarf holds and chokes. And I just don't think Vandaa had enough time to do that necessarily. So I'm on Olynyk here, reluctantly again, but I do think he's the rightful pick.
Yeah, and I mean, Olynyk's still in the gym twice a day, you know, even at his older age, still getting in, you know, good rounds, good training. And yeah, Vandaa, I mean, the takedowns to Romanov, he can't really take much, you know, don't hold much weight. But I mean, Spivak going 3 for 3, you think Olynyk would probably be able to, you know, if moving forward, get at least one takedown here. And, you know, that's really all he needs when it comes to some of these heavyweights and their, you know, defensive grappling chops.
Absolutely.
another short notice fight, Anthony Hernandez taking on Josh Fremd, UFC newcomer. I can let you get started on this one. I know you're very familiar with Fremd and his experience on the LFA scene.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really hard on Frem because I used to like to back him when he was fighting with LFA, and I mean, he'd be a huge favorite and look terrible as a huge favorite. Not the highest fight IQ. He's very hittable, decent grappler, but not a great grappler. But I mean, he did recently switch to Factory X. He is training at elevation now, and my biggest issue with him had been like his cardio and just his inability to kind of maintain the gas tank. I do think he's going to improve in those areas. All that being said, I like Hernandez here. Hernandez was on a full camp. Who was he originally scheduled for?
Yeah, so it was Hernandez against Dricus du Plessis. Then du Plessis was moved up to fight Kelvin Gastelum when his opponent fell out. And then
Right.
unfortunately that fight was scrapped and, removed from the card entirely. So Hernandez got the late replacement in Fremd and takes him on here. Easier matchup. I mean,
yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing though, like Hernandez, he's definitely hittable, super aggressive. We saw Vieira come out and just kind of dominate him early in that fight. Then he gassed out and Hernandez took over. I don't think Frem's going to be similar here, but I do think Hernandez is going to be able to be more aggressive. I see him as a much more dangerous grappler. And yeah, I think in the bright lights, huge card like this, short notice, it's just a little bit too much too soon for Frem. I've been telling you for like over a year, I'm looking forward to this guy making the UFC because I want to fade him. And it's just like, it's not the best matchup to fade him in, but I mean, yeah, I'm taking Hernandez here. I think he probably wins by submission, maybe in the second round, even the first. I think he's got a lot of momentum coming off that Vieira win. I think everyone was counting him out. But when you go back through his record, I mean, he got knocked out by Kevin Holland, and obviously everyone's pretty high on Kevin Holland. And then the Marcus Perez fight was just ugly, but he was just so dumb in that fight, just constantly pursuing takedowns. He really just kind of put himself into that choke. So I don't know. I'm happy to back Hernandez here. I think Frem's a little bit overrated. I'm glad he made the UFC. I think he can improve at Factory X, but he's still a guy, man, that he's just been overrated as a prospect for years. And I think there's going to be some people backing him here, which is keeping the line close. And I think it's a spot where we could take advantage and take the more experienced and more proven fighter in Hernandez. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too crazy on Hernandez just because of, I don't know, he's been super volatile, but yeah, he's the pick here for sure. I just don't want to put any money on Josh Fremd at the UFC level anytime soon.
I agree with you. Hernandez is my pick as well in this spot. I think in addition to the grappling advantage he holds, with his offensive ability there, he also has heavy hands. I mean, he knocked out, light heavyweight and Jordan Wright. He should be able to definitely put it on Fremd, in those exchanges. As you said, very hittable guy. And I think in this spot as well, with the aggressive nature of Hernandez in general, putting it on a guy that really hasn't been there before at this high level, it's a spot where you should be able to take advantage. And short notice as you said too, Fremd isn't really somebody who, I think would shine in a matchup like this, but with the short notice factor, I feel like Hernandez at a -200 is a, fair price to pay.
Yeah, I mean, he was preparing for a monster in Duplessis. Like, he had a great camp. And it's not like his fight got moved. So we were talking about peaking with Olynyk. Like Hernandez is probably peaking at the right time. So I think Frem's kind of running into a buzzsaw here. It is his ticket to the UFC, so I don't blame him for taking the fight, but I just don't think it's a good matchup for him at all. Hernandez does push 5 significant strikes landed per minute, like you said, very aggressive, and I think that's going to be the difference here. Fremd has shown decent durability, but I do think Hernandez could probably catch him in an anaconda choke or something like that if he can get this fight to the mat. And I do expect them to probably late first, early second round.
Yeah, and I think the under is pretty juiced here, but I would definitely think under 10 minutes is going to be, how we see this one ending, probably the way of Hernandez getting the win.
Yes, sir.
All right, another very close matchup, women's strawweight fight between Pierre Rodriguez and Kay Hansen. This is the debut for Rodriguez after a very good fight on Dana White's Contender Series. She was a pretty sizable favorite over Vanessa Machado or Macedo.
Valeska.
Yeah, Valeska, my mistake. Yep. A really good first round, dominated, got clipped second round, and then was really able to come back and pour it on in the third. You know, been training a lot, different looks recently, actually. For this camp, she started out in All Stars Sweden with Kamaev, actually staying in the same dorm that he had, you know, grown up training in there. And now back stateside preparing for, you know, the second half of this camp with Black House in Los Angeles. I like a lot of what I've seen out of her. I mean, she's got really good heavy hands, you know, good movement on the feet, good timing, you know, looking for counters, hunting counters, where Hansen is more so, you know, doing her best work in the grappling department. So I think Rodriguez is going to be able to win this fight if able to keep the feet, or, you know, even be the one aggressing and taking Kay Hansen to the mat. Because on top, we've seen her dominate fights before. And I mean, Hansen isn't the biggest strawweight even. And I think, you know, Rodriguez is going to have the advantage in, you know, most strength or, you know, power-based exchanges here. With what we've seen out of her striking as well, compared to that of Hansen, I think she's going to be able to land the heavier hands, the more appealing shots, and probably get her hand raised here in what is a pick'em fight. But I mean, Hansen by submission is probably the one thing that worries me most about, you know, backing the debuting fighter. You know, I probably am still going to be able or be taking a shot here at odds this close. But you know, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, initially I was liking Hansen, but now kind of digging a little bit deeper into Rodriguez, I think she's probably going to be my pick. I mean, the thing with Hansen, she's a grappler first. She does have that Eddie Bravo jiu-jitsu, but she just doesn't seem like she's improving at all. Like, there's just nothing about her game recently that makes me think she's taking any steps forward. And it's kind of the opposite with Rodriguez. Going into that Machado fight, I really wasn't excited to back her. I don't know, like as a minus 350 favorite, I honestly don't think she looked that good. But I rewatched that Goatsick fight, and Svetlana Gotsick. I don't know much about her, but she seems to be a grappler first. And I like the submission defense I saw out of Rodriguez, and I think that's going to be the major key here. I do see Rodriguez as the much better striker, the much more dangerous and aggressive striker. Hansen, if she's smart, she'll just shoot for takedowns and try to control position on the mat. But I just don't think Rodriguez is, I don't know. I don't think she's going to be there to be submitted. And I just see her as the more vicious, like similar to what we were talking about Pennington, and these kind of middle, like not that the Pennington fight is, but in these lower to middle level women's matchups, it's just who's more of a killer here. Because the skills kind of flush out, but who wants it more? Who's more vicious? And Rodriguez, I mean, she wants it, man. And I mean, even though she didn't look perfect in that Machado fight, she was definitely going after it the whole damn time. So yeah, a really, really low confidence pick. We've seen Hansen in there against more established fighters. Like, she has that win over Jin Yu Fry, which is a much better win than anything on Rodriguez's record. Like, before that Goatsick fight, she was fighting absolute tomato cans. But at this point in their careers, I think Rodriguez is making the better steps forward. You mentioned she's been training at All Stars. I think that's a good thing. Hansen, yeah, she's got some extracurriculars. She seems to be a bit more concerned with Instagram, OnlyFans, etc. Maybe she'll prove me wrong. This is a girl I was pretty high on a couple years ago. I did make some good money on her when she did tap Jin Yu Fry, but since then it's just kind of been all downhill. So I'll be interested to see weigh-in, see what these girls look like face to face. Hansen looked terrible her last fight, but that was up a weight class, so just keep that in mind. So I'll be interested to see how they square up. If Hansen looks way, way, way bigger, then maybe I flip my pick, but right now it's Rodriguez. I just think she's more vicious. I think most of this fight takes place on the feet, and if it does hit the mat, I do see her as having enough of a submission defense to be able to keep Hansen off her. So
Yeah,
Rodriguez.
I mean, the grappling exchanges are all that worry me, but yeah, I mean, the much heavier hitter, the much you know, better striker, in my opinion. I think she gets the job done. All right, and then the last fight for us to break down, the one opening up the card. We have Arce against Santos, the debuting fight for him. You know, here after what's been quite a long layoff. I mean, not a fight since 2019, but a high action fighter. I mean, you know, throws wild stuff, spinning attacks, you know, moving forward constantly. He's fighting a guy in Arce who's well established, you know, in the division, and you know, tough losses. Song Yadong, Hakeem Dawodu, but, overall, able to get the job done against these lower level guys like Ewell. And I would figure in a matchup like Santos, as long as he is defensively sound and, focuses on the fundamentals here against somebody who could be coming at him pretty wild from the jump. I would say as well, his ability to mix things up, not really one to take things to the mat, but at least defensively sound when going there. I think he should be able to get the job done here. And, the line reflects that as a -195 favorite. I mean, Santos is hyper aggressive, so you really don't know what you're getting, but I kind of see, especially with a full crowd, perhaps coming out a bit too much here, perhaps blowing his load or, just not able to catch up with somebody, more technically sound, like Julio Arce.
Yeah, I mean, this Santos kid, I think he's pretty good. But like you said, we haven't seen him fight since 2019. Throws a ton of spinning attacks, really flashy Superman punches, kicks off the cage, things like that. But against Arce, who has really good striking defense, upward pushing 70%, I think it's kind of a nightmare matchup for him. Arce, yeah, he lost to Song Yadong, but Yadong is on a tear right now, climbing the bantamweight ranks. It's just a level of competition thing for me here. And I mean, we've seen a lot more out of Arce lately. I think he's going to be bigger, rangier, more technical striker. This is a fight that I imagine takes place entirely on the feet. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I think Arce is durable. Like, obviously, Yadong can knock out anyone in the division. But I mean, coming off a knockout, you always have to be a little bit worried if their chin's going to be compromised. So that's my one concern. Maybe Santos just rushes him insane and catches him with something just totally unexpected. But other than that, as long as Arce can kind of weather that first minute or two, I do see him just kind of picking his shots, countering some of these spinning attacks, and probably knocking Santos out at some point. I like Arce a lot. I think he's a good, well-rounded fighter, especially on the feet. And like I said, I mean, striking defense near 70% when you consider some of the guys he's fought, that's just really impressive. And those crazy spinning attacks, they work at a low level. But once you get up to these guys that know how to play defense and in the bigger cage, I just think this is going to be Arce's fight to win or lose. I think it's the opener for a reason. Like, this guy's going to come out shot out of a cannon and he's going to be live that first minute or so. But after that, Arce's class should shine through. So I do like him to win here, and I do think he could probably get it done inside the distance.
Yeah, agreed. Fundamentally sound. Big cage as well. Probably can avoid a lot of those, high pressure attacks, things of the sort from Santos coming his way. And yeah, I think over the course of 15 minutes, we see the difference of levels between these two.
Yeah. I mean, Santos, the thing though, with these long layoffs, you have to be a little
You never
concerned. Like,
know. I mean,
yeah, sometimes they come out looking amazing. Was it like Jonathan Pierce after the Joe Lozon fight? Like, he's looked great ever since. Like, there's certain guys that come back and look better. And he's young. I mean, he's been out for a while, but he's 27 and he fights out of shoot a box. So there is a little bit of a question mark there just in what we're going to see out of him, but we can only go off what we've seen, and off what we've seen, I think Arce catches him. So we'll see. He's never been knocked out though, Santos, so maybe don't go crazy with the inside the distance, but Arce should pick him apart.
Yeah, I got Arce by decision, but volatile fight. That's why it's opening the card. Could go either way, but that's the pick.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, it was awesome breaking down the card. I mean, I am so excited for this Saturday. I would say the best, pay-per-view of the year thus far that we've had. I mean, for sure with these three fights at the top and some awesome action from the jump. Again, you can check out our full breakdown with a write-up of every single fight on Dime Sports come this Saturday morning. We'll let you know exactly what round these fights are ending in, what our picks are, and letting you know any bets we may be taking as well. Nick, excited for these fights. It was good breaking them down with you tonight.
Likewise, man. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, enjoy UFC 273 this Saturday. Volkanovski versus the Korean Zombie. And we'll catch you later.
Take care.